Mr. Ballin.
Today we're going to look at 3 places you can't go and people who went there anyways. But before we get into today's stories,
dude,
if you're
what
a fan
is
of the strange,
this,
dark,
dude?
and mysterious delivered in store.
He's the GOAT? I'm gonna be right back.
On Friday, August 21st, 2020,
LDJ.
58-year-old Aristides Polino was driving back to his home in Miami, Florida in his police SUV after completing a midnight shift. Aristides was a 25-year veteran of the Miami police force, and over the last 2+ decades, he had routinely done midnight shifts, so this was nothing new. When he got to his house, he parked his SUV in the driveway, and like always, he went right into his
Wait, did you guys see that the child in the box has been identified? No shot, bruh. Can you find the video or find that shit and send it to me?
He didn't talk to his wife Clara or his son. He just went straight up to his bedroom and immediately fell asleep. About 4 hours later at 5 p.m., Aristides woke up and he expected to hear his wife's voice somewhere in the house. So when he didn't and the house was just totally silent, something told him that something was off. So he climbed out of bed, he put on his clothes, and he went downstairs.
Motherfucking Spidey senses were tingling.
When he got down to the living room, he saw his son sitting on the couch, but he didn't see his wife. And so he asked his son, you know, hey, have you seen your mom? And he would say, no, I haven't seen her. But sensing on his dad's face that something was wrong, he said, hey, I'll help you look for mom. And so the two men began searching the house, yelling out for Clara, and Aristides began calling his wife, but she wasn't picking up. And after several minutes, the two men reconvened in the living room, and they started going over whether or not she had told them about some appointment that day, and that would explain why she wasn't in the house. But after talking about it, they decided that she didn't have any appointments and she should be home right now. And so the men decided, you know, maybe she went outside and she's talking to a neighbor, or, you know, she went for a walk and she's talking to somebody on the road. And so they decided they would go outside and search the outside of the property. When they got outside, Aristides went towards the back of the property and his son went towards the front, down towards the driveway. And so as Aristides is making his way around the back of the property, he hears his son scream out for help. Aristides comes running back around the property and he sees his son standing in the driveway with the door of his police SUV wide open. 4 hours earlier, after Aristides came home, he parked his police SUV right in the driveway like he always did, and for some reason he left the car unlocked. And so he goes in the house and he falls asleep.
Can you
and
see
while
the
he
video
was sleeping, Clara, who was home, she exited the house and walked down the driveway to his SUV. She opened up the door and went inside. It's believed she was looking for something, although we don't know what she was looking for. And while she was in the back of his car, fishing around for whatever it was she was looking for, the door she entered the vehicle in shut behind her. And because this is a police SUV, the back seat was designated for suspects. And so the back 2 doors did not open from the inside. And there was a very thick partition separating the back seat from the front seat. So Clara could not just reach over the seats and honk the horn to get someone's attention. And Clara did not have her cell phone, so she couldn't call anyone for help. And when she screamed out for help to somebody out on the road to help her, her screams were severely muffled, and the back windows of this police car were heavily tinted, making it extremely difficult to see that there was a person in the back seat of this car. So for 4 hours, Clara desperately screamed and kicked and punched and did everything she could to try to free herself from the situation she was in. All the while, the temperature inside the car continued to go up. The SUV was parked in full sunlight, no shade whatsoever, and the temperatures that day were over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And so by the time Clara was ultimately discovered, the inside of that SUV had effectively become an oven. Aristides ran over to his vehicle and he pulled his wife out and he started doing CPR on her, but it was too late.
Bro, that is fucked, man.
Her death was ultimately ruled an accident.
Dude, that's so fucked. Bro, imagine, being trapped in a car like that, bro. And you're literally being baked alive, dude. Holy shit.
On May 22nd, 2021, a father and his young son were out for a walk in their small suburban town just outside of Barcelona, Spain. When they reached their downtown, they were going to turn around and walk back home, but the boy pleaded with his father to make a quick stop at the old theater. The reason the boy and many other kids in the town loved going to this old theater was because out front of it was this huge papier-mâché statue of a dinosaur, a stegosaurus to be exact. And so after a little bit of convincing, the father finally agrees, and they start heading in that direction. After they turned the corner and could actually see the dinosaur statue, the boy took off running while the father just stayed back and walked leisurely, watching his son the whole time. And as he's watching his son, he can see he gets right up to the statue, and then the boy just kind of suddenly stops and stares at something on the bottom of the statue.
No,
so the father
bro.
notices his son has seen something peculiar enough to make him stop and stare, and so he yells to his son, "Hey, what do you see?" And the son just points at the back right leg of the statue. And so the father thinks this is really weird, so he jogs up to his son and he crouches down right next to him and looks in the direction his son is pointing. And at first, the father believes all his son is pointing at is this fairly obvious crack on the outside of the statue on the back right leg. And he's thinking his son has just noticed that the statue is kind of falling apart. But as he's looking at this crack that his son is pointing at, he realized his son was not pointing at the crack. He was pointing at what was behind the crack, what was inside the dinosaur statue. And when the father realized what he was looking at, he grabbed his son, stood up, and ran in the other direction and called emergency services. A few minutes later, the police and fire department show up in front of this old theater. They get out and they go up to the statue and they confirm what's inside this back right leg. Afterwards, they go to their trucks and they get out chainsaws. Eventually, they were able to carve a big enough square on this back right leg that they were able to remove the thing that the father and the son had seen originally, and that was a dead man's body. Not much is known.
Bro. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at a dude dying, bro. I'm laughing at how he died, bro. I'm sorry, dude. That's so fucked, bro. Bro, imagine
about this dead man, except that he was a 39-year-old.
Imagine diving into a paper mache dinosaur, bro, and dying in that vid. Damn, that sucks.
Man who his family had reported missing a couple of days before he was actually found.
Dude.
While we don't know this for sure, it's believed he decided to crawl inside the statue when he realized the belly of the dinosaur was movable. Now, it's not entirely clear how he figured that out. Either the belly was already moved and he saw the opening and so saw the opportunity to crawl inside for some reason, or he was poking and prodding at the statue and discovered the belly was movable, moved it aside, and then again seized the opportunity and crawled inside. But either way, the man crawled inside the statue, and then once he was in the dinosaur, his phone slipped out of his hand or slipped out of his pocket, and then instead of falling out of the dinosaur onto the ground, it fell inside the dinosaur and slid down the inside of the statue until it fell into the bottom of the bottom right hand leg. And so the man decides to go after his phone, and so on his belly he slides over to the back right leg, and then he begins lowering himself head first into the leg, reaching for his phone. And so as he's kind of slowly lowering himself down, using his legs to pin himself inside the statue, he gets closer and closer, and he's almost about to grab his phone when his feet lose their grip and he slips and falls headfirst all the way to the bottom of this back right leg. The space he was in was so tight, he was not able to turn himself around and climb up and out again. In fact, it was so tight, he could barely move. His arms were pinned by his side, and so he couldn't use them to even push himself back up and out. And because he could not bend his leg,
bro, yeah, dude, getting stuck somewhere upside down, fuck no, bro.
He could not use his legs to pull himself back out again either. And so this man most likely began screaming for help,
fear unlocked,
but for whatever reason, nobody heard him. And so after what must have been several agonizing days, the man finally just died. His autopsy has not been made public, so we don't know for sure what actually killed him, although one could speculate he died of either dehydration or perhaps asphyxia from being trapped in this really tight space where his chest may not have been able to expand all the way.
Damn,
would have eventually suffocated. Following the gruesome discovery, the dinosaur statue was removed from the front of the old theater. In the early 1980s, John Harder was the classic, athletic, popular kid at his high school in Delaware, Ohio, which is a relatively small town just outside of the state's capital. But unlike most stereotypes that paint high school jocks as being these total jerks,
does go crazy, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
And they're kind of stupid, John was none of those things. He was incredibly friendly and very warm-hearted and seemed to get along with everyone. John also was known for having a great sense of humor. In particular, he liked to play these kind of harmless pranks that would make people smile, smile, like the
Okay.
time he very enthusiastically joined the cheerleaders during a high school pep rally, despite not actually being a cheerleader himself.
He
John was set to
that
graduate
guy.
from high school on June 5th, 1983, and his plan was to study accounting at Kent State University the following year. A few weeks before his graduation, John's high school began selling these tickets to a grad night at a huge amusement park called Kings Island.
Okay.
Kings Island was located about 2 hours west of John's high school, and it was home to dozens of roller coasters, water slides, and many other attractions. During their so-called grad nights, this amusement park would shut down their public operations and not let anybody into the park that did not have these special student tickets that they gave to local area high schools. John, who was 17 years old at the time, was very excited at the idea of going to this grad night, and so he went and purchased tickets along with about 20 other students from his high school. At about 3:30 p.m. on Friday, May 13th, John and the other students who had bought grad night tickets met up outside of their high school. While this was a school-sponsored trip, the students were responsible for driving themselves to the park. And so after all the students were accounted for, they all piled into a couple of their cars and they began their journey to the park. After a few stops along the way to get
Bro, I'm
food and
sorry.
to the bathroom,
Guys,
the
hold
students
up.
finally arrived at the
I'm sorry for not having like any input. I'm so out of it and tired right
park
now.
at about 7 p.m. And on the drive, John, who had been a passenger, had drank half a bottle of rum and about 3 to 6 beers. And so when he got out, he could barely stand. He was so drunk. And so the students made their way
Damn.
over to the front gate. They showed the attendant their grad night ticket, and they were allowed inside. And surprisingly, despite it being this special night where only people with these tickets were allowed in, it was still pretty crowded. There were lots of students that apparently wanted to come to this event. Once John and the rest of the students from the Delaware High School had come inside the park, there was no rule that they had to stick together for the duration of their time there, and so they all kind of broke into their separate groups and went their separate ways. In John's particular group was his girlfriend Pam, and for the first hour they were in the park together, all they did was bicker and fight. Onlookers would say John looked visibly upset and very emotional and very drunk. By 8:30 p.m., when John's group had gotten in line for this roller coaster,
This motherfucker was
John
drunk
was
as
now
hell.
openly saying, "I don't want to be here anymore. I just want to go home." It was pretty obvious he was still just mad at Pam, and that's why he was saying all this, was just trying to make Pam feel bad. And so some of the group members told John, just, "Hey man, calm down. You're overreacting. Just try to enjoy this ride, and then afterwards we'll get some
Tension.
food.
Ooh, I
It'll
want
be
to
fine."
say it
But was
so
pretty
bad,
clear
but I'll
that
get
John
banned.
was
Ooh,
really
I want to
worked
say
up
it.
and seemed incapable of having a good time at this point. But regardless, John and the rest of the group, they got on this ride at about 9 p.m. and then after the ride was over, they disembarked and they walked away from the ride to
John being a
regroup and figure
bitch,
out what was
man.
next. And they're looking around, and John is nowhere to be found. And so after waiting for a few minutes and actually walking around looking for him, they decided that, you know what, he was really upset before he got on this ride. He probably just wanted to walk away and be by himself for a
True.
bit. I'm sure we'll see him later in the night. So John's group, without John, just continued going around the park, going on different rides, and for the next few hours, they kind of forgot about John. It wasn't until the
Yikes,
end of the
dude.
night, when over the
That's
loudspeaker,
fucked.
the park officials said, "Okay, we're closing the park now," that they started walking out and wondering where John was. And they were convinced, you know what, I'm sure he's back at the cars. He's probably waiting for us because he just wants to go home. So they leave the park, they get out to their cars in the lot, and John's not there. And so at this
Oh,
point, the group's
shit.
starting to get a little bit concerned because no one knows where he is. They're meeting up with the other groups from their high school. No one's seen John. And so they're all just kind of
Bro, they're kind of L friends. Not even gonna lie. This might be an L take. Bro, they're L ass friends for letting their drunk ass friend fucking dip, bro. That's kind of an L friend move, bro. Especially at an amusement park, bro. Okay, dude, that's
staring at the
fucked.
front gate, waiting
That's
for
fucked.
John to come out, but he doesn't. And then eventually the lights in the park start shutting down, and the security guard comes out front and locks the front gate.
But at the
And
end of the
that's when
day,
group knew
that is really fucked. At the end of the day, though, I mean, they can't really control the dude. But I don't know, bro. I want to know the context. I want to know if they try convincing that dude to stay,
they had a
bro.
problem.
Fuck
After
me.
an extensive investigation by police, this is their best guess as to what happened to John. After John and his small group rode that roller coaster around 9 p.m., John very quickly disembarked the ride before anybody else in his group could see him, and then John stumbled his way towards the replica Eiffel Tower that this park was famous for. This tower stood at about 300 feet tall and was built to be an exact replica of the Eiffel Tower in Paris,
Jesus.
France. But this one at Kings Island was only a third the size. It had 3 elevators that went up the center of the structure, and the elevators would stop at a 50-foot platform and a 275-foot platform where guests could look out and have a great view of the park.
That's
While
pretty cool.
today, the only way to access these two viewing platforms is
sick, bro.
through these elevators. At the time John was at the park in 1983, the park actually had a flight of stairs that went from the ground all the way to the very top of the tower.
Yo, do not
right
tell
up
me.
the middle of the structure, and the public was allowed to take these stairs all the way up to the first platform that
Bro, if you tell me this motherfucker fell down the stairs, I swear to
50-foot
God.
platform. And while the stairs did actually continue beyond that, up to the 275-foot platform,
No
the public was not
shot,
allowed to
dude.
go any higher on the stairs than that first platform. And so if you took these stairs, once you got to the 50-foot platform, there would be a big fence right on the stairwell preventing you from going any farther.
Did he
And it
climb
says
the
authorized
fucking
personnel
fence,
only,
dog?
don't go any farther. And so the
No
only people that
shot,
would walk
bro.
up those additional flights of stairs were staff that had a special key. When John stumbled his way over to the base of this replica tower, he did not get on an elevator. Instead, he took the stairs. So he made his way
Dumbass,
up to
dude.
the
No
50-foot
shot,
platform,
bro.
and then when he got to this 6-foot tall gate preventing him from going any farther, he just climbed up and over it and continued
Oh
walking
my
up the
God,
stairs,
dude.
and nobody stopped him. He finally came to a stop
Jet, would you guys jump that goddamn fence, bro? Fuck no. Fuck no, I would not, bro.
just below the 275
Straight
mark.
drunk
And so
mode,
he's on the
facts.
stairwell, and at this point he turns and faces the inside of the tower. It's all these metal beams all over the place, and he climbs over the railing of the stairs he's on, and he climbs onto this narrow beam that's actually a part of the support structure of this tower, and he grabs onto the beam above him and just begins walking along this beam towards the center
Bro was tweaking off the bars, bro. Tweaking off the
of
bars.
the
That's
tower
actually crazy.
where the 3 elevators shafts are. Now, there's no safety net on either side of John, so if he slips and falls, he's falling hundreds of feet to the ground. And if he keeps walking
Holy
and actually
dude.
gets into the elevator shaft, there's nothing protecting him from being struck by one of the elevators, because the people who built this tower were not thinking about people walking on these exposed beams hundreds of feet up into the air. This is a
Oh my
totally
God,
dangerous
dude.
and
Fuck
unauthorized
no.
area. But John just continues shimmying across this beam until he does get to the middle of the tower, and now he's literally standing looking down into the elevator shafts. And as he's
What was that fucking sound effect?
unauthorized area. But John just continues shimmying across this beam until he does get to the middle of the tower, and now he's literally standing looking down into the elevator shafts. And as he's most likely looking around, admiring where he was, one of the elevator
That's
cars
so
below him began to start moving. To understand what happens next, you need to have a rudimentary understanding of how this elevator worked. A large metal rope was attached to the top of the elevator car, and
No
from
way,
there
dude.
it was thread up the elevator shaft all the way to the top, where it was fed through a pulley that was anchored to the ceiling, and then that rope was fed right back down the shaft to the bottom, where it was attached to a counterweight. A counterweight is just a large heavy weight that's designed to balance this elevator car on this pulley system. Without the weight, the elevator car would
Okay,
just
dude.
slip off
Come
of
on,
that
bro. Get to
pulley.
the
And so
point.
anytime the elevator car moved up, the counterweight would move down, and vice versa, making sure
Oh,
that car was
shit.
always balanced. And so John is standing right on the edge of this elevator shaft, presumably just kind of looking around, admiring where he was, when
Wait,
down
did he get
below him, that
flattened?
elevator car starts to move, and it starts to actually descend away from John. And so the car itself is not necessarily a threat to John. However, its counterweight is, because if the car is going down, its counterweight is going up, and it's right in the path of John.
Oh,
and so
nah,
as John
dude.
is leaning out over the shaft looking around, this counterweight comes screaming up and picks him off of the beam he's on
No
and
way.
carries him up into the shaft. The impact on John was so strong that it's believed he was actually impaled on some of the exposed metal wiring on top of this counterweight, and he got totally tangled up in all of the cables on top
Oh,
of it. And so as
dude,
John
nah.
is desperately trying to free himself, the elevator operator,
Used
there
to
was always
follow
a
this guy
staff
on
member
TikTok?
inside of these
Damn.
elevator cars, he actually noticed when John got stuck on
I've
the
never seen this dude
counterweight, but
before.
of course, this worker would have no idea that's what it was. They would later recall it just felt like the car suddenly jumped. And so this worker, fearing that something had gone
I'm not even gonna lie. I thought this dude was about to tell me that the dude went flat Stanley mode, bruh. I thought that's
wrong with the elevator car itself,
thought
he
this story was
decided he
about to
would
tell
ride
me,
it
bro.
all the way to the bottom, let everybody get out, and then ride back up to the top totally
2 years
empty
ago?
to
Damn.
make sure that the car actually worked before allowing people back on. And so the worker went to the ground.
The dude at
got
the
out, he
end.
closed the doors. He began
Bing
his
bong.
ascent.
What-
He
what's
got
up,
to that
bees?
first platform at 50 feet, no issues. He got about 10 feet above that first platform, so at about 60 feet, when all of a sudden he hears
Bees,
an unbelievably
we're watching
loud
some
thud
crazy
on the
ass
roof
shit.
of his elevator car, causing his
Bro.
car to immediately come to a stop. And then blood began pouring over the sides
It's
of the car, over the
raining.
windows.
Bro,
After getting
imagine.
stuck on the counterweight, John probably
No
did everything
shot.
he could to try to free himself, but he just couldn't do it. However, when
How's
that
your day,
elevator
bees?
worker decided to go back up again to test the capacity of the elevator car, it reversed the direction of the counterweight that John was stuck on. And so as
What
that car
the
was going up,
fuck,
John
dude?
began going down, and it was on this descent that parts of John's body must have been dangling off of this counterweight, and they must have struck one of the beams as he was going down.
Oh my
and
God,
that beam
dude.
effectively pried him off of whatever he was stuck
Oh,
on and threw
dude.
him over the edge into the center of the shaft. And so John would fall 200 feet and he would land on top of that elevator car, dying.
It's
instantly.
me again?
The park was
Bro,
very
what's
quick
up?
to block off the ride and the whole scene and got police involved.
Bro,
very
what do I
quickly.
call you, motherfucker? Bro, do I call you Camp? Is Camp fine, yeah or nay? Is Camp cool? Fuck
So
me,
only
silly.
a very small number of guests and employees were aware an accident had even happened.
Dude.
And very few
Dude, bro, see, bro, this is why you never get drunk and fucking, like, obliterated. This dude was obliterated than a hoe, bro. Straight up. You never get obliterated than a hoe to this fucking extent, bro. That is so fucked, dude. Ron Scene,
of
but
them were aware that it had been a fatal accident. As for the police, they knew they had a dead body, but they had no way to identify the body. There was no ID cards on John, and so they had no way to let his friends know that were in the park or to tell his family. And so it wasn't until that night when John's friends are out in the parking
No
lot waiting for
fucking
John
way,
to come
dude.
out again,
Nah, dude.
that they got really worried and they went up and spoke to a security guard at the front of the park. And that security guard, after hearing their story, would tell them that actually there had been an accident in the park and there was a body and the police are still trying to identify this body. And so maybe you guys want to go over to the hospital and see if it's your friend. So sure
Dude,
enough, the friends
fuck
went to the
no,
hospital
bruh.
and they would confirm that the body was John Harder.
Bro,
To
he
this
got
day,
straight-
no one knows for sure why
Oh,
John did
man.
what he did. Some say he was just drunk and it was a dumb decision that led to his death. Others say he was suicidal.
Thanks,
But
bro.
many of the people that were close to him say, no way, he was not suicidal. And other people say,
That's
John, he
fucked.
loved attention, and so perhaps this was a dangerous stunt gone too far. But regardless of his reasons,
No
John
shot,
had
dude.
clearly intentionally
Bro.
entered an area that was off limits, and it got him killed. So
bro,
that-
facts, dude. Dude was so obliterated, bro. Why do you take the stairs? First of all, if there's the option to go on an elevator, bro, I'm taking the elevator. What about you guys? Fuck
that's
stairs,
gonna do it,
man.
guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comment section.
Got me fucked up, boys.
Run it up, run it up. Fuck if it made up, play double dutch. Hit from the back, fuck a stomach up. Sherry on shit on my honey nuts. Fuck your girl on cam.